The cafe was warm and busy, with soft jazz playing above the murmur of afternoon conversation. The air smelled of espresso and sugar. Amelia Green hadn't even reached the table when Marcus looked up from his untouched cappuccino and said, "We need to talk." Her heart dropped. "Please like and subscribe to my channel for more contents." She took one more hesitant step, hoping she had heard wrong. But Marcus's face was blank, his voice flat, as if he had practiced the words too many times. She sat down anyway, her palms already sweating. "What's going on?" she asked, forcing a smile. "Is this about the caterer?" He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small velvet box, not to give to her, but to take something back. "I can't marry you, Amelia," he said. 7 words. Simple, sharp, and devastating. Amelia froze. "What?" she whispered. Marcus leaned back in his chair, like he had been holding a heavy truth, and finally sat down. "It's not you," he said. "We're just moving in different directions. I've made new connections, ones that matter. Elise Langford and I are aligned in ways I didn't expect." Amelia blinked. Elise Langford, the daughter of Weston Langford, the venture capitalist who practically owned Silicon Valley. Her stomach twisted. "You're leaving me for her?" she asked quietly. "It's not like that," he replied, though it clearly was. "This is better for both of us. You deserve someone simpler." He didn't flinch as Amelia stared at him in disbelief, trying to understand how the man she was supposed to marry in just 16 days could throw her away so casually. Then, as if the cruelty wasn't complete, he added, "Also, the ring, it's a family heirloom. My grandmother would be crushed if it left the family." Amelia's fingers trembled as she reached for the ring. She slipped it off slowly, not because of hesitation, but because her hands were shaking too much to move quickly. She placed it gently on the table between them. "Thank you for your honesty," she said quietly. Then she stood up. She didn't cry. Not in front of him. Not in that cafe filled with strangers, coffee cups, and someone else's love songs playing overhead. She walked past the couples sharing desserts, past the curious eyes watching the scene unfold, and straight out through the glass doors. Only when she turned the corner onto Elm Street did the tears fall. Silent at first, then sudden, like a dam had broken in her chest. Her legs carried her on instinct, her thoughts a blur. She couldn't go back to the apartment, not with the half-packed boxes and her wedding dress hanging like a ghost in the closet. But when she arrived, it was already done. Her suitcases were lined up by the door, labeled, organized, clothes, books, toiletries. Not by Marcus, he wouldn't bother. It had to be his mother, Susan Miller, the perfect hostess with a cold smile. Amelia stared at the bags like they belonged to someone else. She slid down onto the floor beside them and sat there. She didn't know how long. Maybe hours. Her old studio lease had ended 3 weeks ago. She'd given it to a nursing student who needed a place close to the hospital. Every cent she had saved had gone into wedding expenses. Her account showed $94 and some cents. Payday wasn't for another week. With no home and nowhere to go, Amelia did the only thing she hadn't done in over a year. She called her foster mother. The phone rang 3 times before a familiar voice answered. Warm, steady, and gentle. "Amelia, sweetheart, where have you been? I was just about to text you about those shoes we saw last week." Amelia choked. She couldn't speak. Only a broken sob escaped her lips. That was enough. An hour later, she was curled on Margaret Lowell's faded plaid couch, wrapped in a thick knit blanket, holding a mug of peppermint tea. Margaret sat beside her, smoothing her hair like she used to when Amelia was 13, fragile from yet another foster placement gone wrong. Margaret didn't ask for details. She didn't push or pry. She only said, "You stay here as long as you need, you hear me? I've got room. You don't need to explain anything. You've got nothing to prove." That night, Amelia couldn't sleep. She lay on the old pull-out bed in the living room, staring at the ceiling, listening to the quiet creaks of the house. Her mind replayed every moment from the cafe, the flatness in Marcus's voice, the way he hadn't even hesitated, the way he said Elise Langford like it was a career upgrade. Had he ever loved her? Or had she been a placeholder until something better, something richer, came along? By sunrise, the pain in her chest had settled into a deep, bitter ache. Not just heartbreak, but shame. She had been 2 weeks away from starting a new chapter. Marriage, a family, a home. Now she was back where she started. 28, heartbroken, homeless, and humiliated. By noon, she had showered, dressed, and walked back into the hospital like nothing had happened. The nurses smiled. Some asked about the wedding plans. She smiled back, nodded, lied, because the truth would have broken her all over again. Amelia moved through her hospital shift like a ghost. She monitored vitals, administered medication, adjusted IVs, all while pretending she was fine. She told people the wedding was postponed. She said Marcus had a business trip. She said she was okay. She said too much. Her smile cracked every time she caught her reflection in the break room mirror. On the third day, while checking charts in room 8, Rachel, the blunt, no-nonsense charge nurse, stuck her head in and said, "You still dreaming of escaping this place?" Amelia blinked. "What?" Rachel motioned her into the hallway. "You remember Lily from Neuro? Took that private live-in job last month." Amelia nodded. "She quit. Last week." "What happened?" Rachel smirked. "The patient, some paralyzed tech guy living up in one of those ridiculous Cypress Hill mansions, pays triple what we make. No roommates. No night shifts. Just him." "I'm not a caregiver," Amelia said. "You're a nurse with 5 years of experience," Rachel shot back. "You're more qualified than half the people they've tried. And you're stubborn. Might actually be a good thing." Amelia hesitated. Her heart still ached. Her future was gone. But the word escape echoed loudly. "You have a contact." 10 minutes later, Rachel handed her a card. Elegant handwriting. Marion Dalton, estate manager. A number printed beneath it. That night, Amelia stood in Margaret's backyard, phone trembling in her fingers. Cold Montana wind blew against her coat. She dialed. "Dalton," the voice answered. "This is Amelia Green. I was told there's a position for a live-in nurse." Pause. "Are you available for an interview tomorrow morning at 9? Yes, I can be there. Bring credentials. You'll receive the address shortly. Do not be late." Click. At 4:30 a.m., Amelia boarded the first flight to San Francisco. The cab climbed through Cypress Hill as morning fog rolled across the cliffs. When the estate came into view, Amelia caught her breath. It wasn't a house. It was a fortress, glass and stone carved into the side of a hill. Sharp lines, gleaming windows, a gate that opened without a sound. She wanted to tell the driver to turn around, but it was too late. Marion Dalton opened the door. A woman in her 60s, crisp navy suit, silver bun, eyes like glass. "You're early," she said. "I didn't want to be late." "Good." The interview was short. Marion asked only 4 questions, didn't smile once, then reviewed Amelia's resume in silence. Finally, she nodded. "You're hired." Amelia blinked. "Just like that." "The terms are simple. Round-the-clock availability. 2 days off per month. No visitors. You'll live on the 2nd floor, next to your patient. Meals and lodging are included. Discretion is not optional. Salary, $12,000 a month. Bonuses based on patient progress." Amelia gripped the arms of the chair. It was more than triple her hospital salary. "I accept." Marion slid a folder across the table. "Review your contract tonight. Your patient is Mr. Nolan Vance." The name meant nothing. Not yet. The next morning, Amelia stood outside Nolan's door, heart racing. The hallway was silent, the kind of silence polished marble and money created. Marion stood beside her. "You sure you want this?" she asked. "I signed the contract." "That's not what I asked." Amelia swallowed hard. "Yes." Marion knocked twice, then opened the door without waiting for an answer. Inside was light glass and stone, and Nolan Vance, seated in a sleek black wheelchair, back to them, watching the redwoods through the window. "Mr. Vance," Marion said briskly, "your new nurse has arrived. Amelia Green." He didn't turn, just tapped his fingers against the armrest. Then, after a long pause, he spun the chair to face them. Amelia's breath hitched. He was young, maybe mid-30s. Dark hair, sharp cheekbones, pale skin. Even seated, he looked tall. But it wasn't his appearance that struck her. It was the look in his eyes, like he had already given up on her. "So," he said dryly, "they sent another one." "I'm not here to place bets," Amelia said, standing firm. "Just to do my job." "What job is that?" he asked. "Medication, physical therapy, monitoring vitals, supporting rehab." He snorted. "You forgot the part where you nod while I fail to walk." "I'm not here to pity you." Nolan raised an eyebrow. "That's new. Most of them crack by day 3. Maybe I'll surprise you." "Maybe," he muttered, not convinced. That day was awkward. He tested her with sarcasm. She responded with calm professionalism. She recorded charts, administered meds, asked nothing about the accident. That night, as she adjusted his pillows, he said suddenly, "You haven't asked." "About what?" "The accident. I figured you'd tell me if you wanted." He paused. "Solo ski trip. I lost control. Woke up in a helicopter. Haven't stood unaided since." "Thank you for telling me." He studied her. "Why'd you take this job?" "I needed it." "Not the money. Why this?" She met his eyes. "Because I've been lied to, and I know what it's like to be thrown away." His gaze changed just for a second. "Don't get attached," he warned. "I don't do friendship." "Good," she replied. "I don't do illusions." It happened on the 5th night. A storm raged outside, howling wind shaking the windows like a restless spirit. Amelia couldn't sleep. She got up to close the blinds, then noticed a light glowing down the West Wing hall. The gym. He never used it at night, rarely let staff in there. Amelia hesitated, then pulled on a sweater and padded barefoot across the cold floor. She opened the door just enough to peek inside. Her heart stopped. Nolan was standing. Not fully, not freely, but standing, gripping parallel bars, sweat dripping down his temple, arms taut with effort, legs trembling beneath him. He was trying. He was fighting. He was healing. Silently. The door creaked. Nolan looked up. Fury overtook his face instantly. "What the hell are you doing?" he barked. "I heard something. I thought." "Get out, Amelia. Now." She didn't move. "Why are you hiding this?" His jaw tightened. "Because once people see progress, they expect miracles. That's not how healing works." "No, but that's how disappointment works." He snapped. "I watched people walk away when I didn't magically get better. I'm not doing that again." "So you pretend you've given up?" "You don't understand." "Maybe I do." He stared at her, breathing hard. "I'm not going to tell anyone," she said gently. "But let me help. Really help." "Why do you care?" "Because I know what it's like to have your future ripped away and be expected to smile through it." He said nothing for a long moment. Then, slowly, he lowered himself back into the chair. "Fine." Amelia exhaled. "But we keep this between us," he added. "You follow my lead. I say stop, we stop." "Agreed." He watched her. "You're not like the others." She smiled faintly. "I'm not trying to be." They began training before dawn, quietly, before the rest of the house stirred. Nolan moved slowly, deliberately, arms shaking with effort. Amelia stood nearby, not cheering, not pitying, just steady, present. She supported his weight when needed, adjusted the bars, encouraged only when asked. Each step was like carving through granite, but he kept walking. It wasn't long before Amelia noticed something else, changes in Nolan. His voice was less clipped, his sarcasm softer. He still hid behind biting remarks, but his eyes didn't carry the same coldness. Then came Eric. She was in the main hallway when she heard the deep voice, too polished, too loud. She followed it to the west sitting room. There sat a man in an expensive suit, sipping dark liquor at 9 a.m. "Ryan," he drawled, "you look like hell." Nolan, whose first name she hadn't even heard aloud, offered a stiff smile. "Good to see you too, Eric." Amelia stepped in with a tray. Eric's gaze slid to her, slow and invasive. "This the new one?" he asked. "She's my nurse," Nolan said flatly. The talk turned to business. Mergers. Investors. Amelia tried to tune it out, until one name made her still. Langford. "Elise's father is ready to fund the acquisition," Eric said. "We just need the signature to transfer control." Nolan didn't answer. Eric leaned in. "Langford Capital absorbs the whole thing. Easy in. Clean exit." Amelia's hands clenched at her sides. Elise Langford. Langford Capital. Was this connected? Jason left her for Elise. And now Elise's people were circling Nolan's company like vultures. Later that night, she found Nolan in his room, preparing for bed. "I overheard something today," she said. "About Langford Capital. About Elise Langford." He froze, and she told him everything. Nolan didn't speak right away. He sat in his chair, hands still, eyes sharp and unreadable. When Amelia finished recounting the conversation, every word, every name, he finally asked, "You know Elise?" "My ex-fiancé left me for her," she said quietly, 16 days before our wedding. His gaze held hers. "Marcus Weston." She nodded. "You know him?" "I know of him. Through Eric. Minor player in some mergers. Elise was a strategic alliance." Something inside her twisted at that phrase. "Are you saying my business partner and your ex are working together?" he asked. "I'm saying it's too many connections to be coincidence." He leaned back, thoughtful. "I'll review the documents." That was all he said. Amelia tried not to feel crushed. She had hoped he'd act. Instead, he returned to silence, closed off again, like everything she had said had disappeared into a void. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her thoughts tangled with questions. Had they picked her for this job on purpose? Had Marcus and Elise known about Nolan's condition? About his isolation? Was Amelia just a pawn? Too easy to overlook, too hurt to notice? She paced the room like an animal in a cage. The next morning, Nolan did something he had never done before. He knocked. Amelia opened the door, startled. He sat there in his chair, a folder in his lap. "You were right," he said simply. Her breath caught. "The documents," he continued. "Langford Capital isn't investing. They're absorbing. Eric created a holding company. On paper, it looks clean. But once I sign, they take controlling interest. Elise's father wins, and Eric sells me out." Her hands trembled. "I want you to help me stop them," he said. Amelia stared at him. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "After everything." Nolan nodded. "If they think I'm too broken to fight, they've forgotten who I was before the fall." They began planning that night. Nolan wheeled himself into the study, a dark oak room that smelled faintly of ink and leather, and rolled up to the long table. Amelia sat across from him, heart pounding. "This is war," he said, and it was. He contacted his personal attorney, started pulling bank records, hidden contract clauses, encrypted emails. Amelia helped organize it all, creating color-coded tabs, recording audio notes, highlighting discrepancies. At first, she felt out of place, but Nolan trusted her, fully, surprisingly, and slowly she began trusting herself again. "Eric was my closest friend," Nolan said one evening, eyes tired. "He was there when I pitched my first app. I gave him power of attorney when I couldn't speak. And he took everything. Yeah. Silence. But I won't be late again. A week later, Nolan scheduled a board meeting. No one suspected a thing. He let Eric believe he was on the verge of signing, even thanked him in writing for carrying the load. The night before the meeting, Nolan suited up. It was the first time Amelia saw him in anything but sweats and t-shirts. A custom midnight blue suit, tailored sharp and clean. He struggled with the cuffs, and she helped, fingers brushing his wrist. "You look like a CEO again," she said. "I never stopped being one." He practiced walking from his room to the hallway, using a sleek black cane. 10 steps. 15. 20. "I want them to see it," he said, with their own eyes. The morning of the meeting, they arrived 15 minutes early. The glass and steel office shimmered under California sun. People turned and stared. Nolan walked in beside her, slow, upright, proud. Inside the boardroom sat Eric, Elise Langford, and beside her, Amelia's stomach turned. Marcus. He looked up. His eyes widened. Nolan didn't flinch. He walked straight to the head of the table. The silence snapped. Eric blinked. "You're walking." "Not perfectly," Nolan said, "but enough." He didn't sit at the end of the table like before. He stood behind the chair reserved for the company's founder and placed a thick folder in front of him. "This meeting is now under my authority." Eric laughed. "We already handled the details, Nolan." Nolan opened the folder and began laying out copies, one by one. Contract lines, shell company documents, emails with timestamps, evidence of backdoor control shifts. Silence fell again, different this time. Stunned. Chilling. Laura Langford didn't blink. Marcus looked like someone had drained the color from his face. "You can't prove intent," Eric said. "I don't need to," Nolan replied coolly. "I only need to prove breach of fiduciary duty, which I just did." A murmur rippled through the room. The company's legal counsel stood up. "Mr. Vance," he said carefully, "do you wish to motion for an immediate vote of no confidence?" "I do," Nolan said. "Effective now." Chaos erupted. Laura stood, her heels sharp against the floor. "You don't know who you're challenging, Nolan." "I do," he replied softly. "A woman who hides behind her father and a man who trades trust for titles." Her eyes darted to Amelia. "And what about her? Your nurse? What is she, your partner now?" Nolan looked straight at Amelia. "She's the reason I'm standing here. She reminded me who I am." Amelia's throat tightened. Marcus looked away. The vote was taken. Unanimous. Eric was removed. The merger dissolved. Control returned to Nolan. The room cleared out. The echoes of betrayal still hung in the air. Alone again, Nolan leaned on his cane, breathing hard. Amelia touched his arm. "You did it." "No," he said, looking at her, really looking. "We did." And for the first time he smiled. A real, unguarded smile. Weeks passed. The mansion, once a cold fortress, changed. Windows stayed open longer. Sunlight danced across marble floors. The gardens bloomed. Even Nolan's voice carried warmth now. He still had bad days, moments of pain, exhaustion, but something was different. So was Amelia. She no longer mourned the wedding that never happened, the name she nearly took, the life she almost built. She let it go. She wasn't the girl left on Elm Street anymore. She began running again, short laps on the private trail behind the house. She applied for her private practice license. She read books. She laughed often and freely. One night, Nolan insisted on cooking. He burned the rice, swore at the oven, dropped a ladle. Amelia sat on the kitchen island, giggling behind her tea. "This meal might kill you," he said, handing her a plate. "If it does, I want it on record," she teased. "You owe me a company in the will." He smiled, then paused. "Actually, no." She blinked. "No." "I've transferred it to a trust," he said. One that includes you. Not because I owe you, but because we built something better together than I ever did alone. Her breath caught. Then, he pulled a small black box from his pocket. Before you say anything, Nolan said quickly, you don't have to answer today. Or this year. I know I'm still healing. And you didn't sign up for this. He opened the box. A simple gold ring. One tiny sapphire. But I'd like to ask anyway. His voice was soft now, almost hesitant. Will you consider walking this road with me? Not because I need saving, but because with you I remember who I am. Amelia smiled. No tears. Just something calm, beautiful. I'm not saying yes, she whispered, but I'm not saying no. He laughed. That sounds exactly like you. And together they kept walking. One step, one day, one miracle at a time.